I am 34 and my ex-wife was 30 at the time I wrote this story. Miriam and I had been married for 6 years and we had a beautiful daughter together. We were a happy family and I couldn't believe that Miriam would decide to throw away everything we shared as a family. We were always there for each other and supported each other's dreams. If she said she wanted to try something out, I would give her my full support and the same applied to me. Everything began to fall apart when Miriam got the role of an intern at her dream organization, and after she completed the internship, she was lucky to be fully retained. The truth is, none of us saw that coming, but I was so happy for her when it did. During my ex-wife's internship, there was this particular coworker of hers she used to talk about all the time. His name was John. She would return for the day and talk about how John was so intelligent, how he helped her out, and so on. I didn't really think there was a problem with that because John was married and he was not helping her alone. He was helping other interns too. Also, being that we were couples who communicated a lot, I literally knew everyone at her place of work even without meeting them face to face because talking about everything was just our way of bonding and filling each other in about our days. After my wife got retained by her organization, she began to change. If she left for work early in the morning, she would return around 7 p.m., leaving just me to care for and look after our daughter. This continued for a while, and any time I tried to talk about this new behavior of hers, she would flare up and say I was being jealous because she earned more than me and her job was better than mine. Yes, it was true that my wife earned more than me, but that was not what this was about, and I hated that she had to rub that in my face each time we disagreed on something or had a fight. Miriam did not just suddenly begin to return home late, but she also became colder towards me. Before all of this happened, our weekend used to be something we all looked forward to because we would cook together, try our baking disasters, clean together, watch movies together, bath together, and even do karaoke with our daughter together, but all of that stopped after she got the job. It got so bad that even if she was at home, it was almost like she wasn't there. If she wasn't on her laptop, she'd be on her phone, and she didn't have an issue with consistently neglecting us to focus on whatever she was doing, no matter how much I complained. It was very painful to watch this because I loved Miriam so much, and whatever was going on was not the plan I had for the both of us, or for our family either. When I had enough, I confronted her one day and asked her to pick between our marriage and her new job since it was turning her into the person she wasn't, and ultimately she picked her job. She said she'd pick her job over and over, and she did not give a damn about our marriage. This was a very painful thing to hear, and she was not kidding either. At that time, I was so busy trying to save our marriage that I didn't notice the changes in the way she dressed, her makeup, and even her choice of clothes. It was a clear sign that she was seeing someone else. It had to be the only reason she neglected me and our daughter, and I was right. One day, I had put our daughter to sleep early and I went to her to think things through, and Miriam was on her laptop in the living room when I left her, so since she didn't hear any movement, she must have thought I was sleeping. She walked into the room and I think she came in to confirm if I was asleep because she didn't see me move. When she confirmed that, she continued to talk on the phone. It didn't take long for me to figure out that she was talking to her lover, whom she told she was pregnant, and at the end of the conversation, she called his name. It was the same John, her coworker. I felt my throat go dry, and I could not believe it. Miriam cheated on me with John, and not just that, she got pregnant by him despite everything we had been through together. I was really broken, but since we were already distant with each other, I didn't need to pretend that everything was okay. While she continued with her ways, I planned my revenge. I really wanted to confront her, but if I did, maybe things would not have turned out the way they did. I got one of those apps that allows you to track people's phones, and I tracked hers. I did this because I needed evidence, and without evidence, my revenge would be incomplete. I got their chats and text messages of them talking about the pregnancy and how she would try to pin it on me. The funny thing is, Since Miriam had started seeing John, we stopped getting intimate because she was always tired whenever I tried to touch her. After that call, she tried to make us get intimate, but I didn't let that happen. Gathering the evidence took a while, and after I got enough, I printed them and put them in a big envelope, then I took it to her workplace myself. When she saw me that day, she pretended like we were cool at home and asked what I was doing there. LOL. I played along and told her I had come to deliver something very important to her boss, so she gave me a cold kiss and returned to whatever she was doing. If only she knew what was going to happen next, maybe she would not have kissed me. I think she was still a month pregnant because her baby bump was not obvious yet. That evening, she returned home in tears, but her bags were already packed by the door. I knew she had been fired because her company did not support coworkers dating each other, and to make matters worse, she was pregnant. When she realized it was me and I had known all this while, she fell on the floor and began to cry and beg me, but it was too late. I told her she'd be getting the divorce papers soon and kicked her out. John's wife eventually heard of the news, and she divorced John too. John and Miriam did not end up together because he said Miriam ruined his life and all his years of hard work, and he wasn't going to take responsibility for the pregnancy because she was married to me, but we all knew the baby wasn't mine either. We eventually divorced, and with the help of my lawyer, I took custody of our daughter. I was not going to let her suffer for the sins of her mother. Miriam gave birth to a boy, and believe me, she has suffered a lot with the baby. Up to date, every time she comes to pick up our daughter, she cries, begs, and admits that she made a terrible mistake. I keep telling her that it would be my own terrible mistake to take her back. Opie, I'm sorry Miriam broke your trust and you had to go through all of this. I'll agree with you that you'd be making a terrible mistake if you took Miriam back. It was inhumane of her to abandon her family and cheat on you with a coworker. It's a good thing that she has gotten what she deserved and John played a fast one on her. I believe you will be fine, and you will definitely find a woman who will value and protect what you both have. I'm glad you did a good thing by getting rid of her and exposing her secrets. You're an example of a strong man, and thank you for sharing your story with us. Now, let's move on to our next story for today. My ex-girlfriend and I had been dating for 4 years, and I was getting ready to propose to her before I found out she was cheating on me. Anna and I loved each other a lot. We were not the perfect Hollywood couple, but we loved each other. While we were dating, I asked Anna to move in with me because I wanted her to be around me all the time. She moved in a year after we started dating, and she went to college from my place. Being that we had dated for a long time, both of our parents were aware of our relationship, and they consented to Anna moving in with me since we were planning to settle down anyways. I was a remote worker who earned well, so money was not an issue for us. My clients paid well, and in turn I provided everything Anna wanted. If she wanted to shop every week, hang out with her friends, do her nails, or even get new wigs, they were all provided for. I cared about Anna and I wanted her to be happy. I played my part in being loyal and faithful, and I refrained from doing anything that would cause me to cheat on her or talk to any woman longer than I should. Anna, on the other hand, was a social butterfly. If she met someone on the same day, it would not take long before they became patties. This was the only problem I had with her, and it was always the cause of our fights. In the process of being social with most men, they would cross their boundaries, and Anna did not seem to have a problem with it. If we talked about it, she would tell me this is who I am and I am not going to change my personality because you are not comfortable with it, so I let it slide. When Anna finished college, she was not able to get a job immediately after, so in the process of staying at home with me, she added extra pounds, and this made her very uncomfortable. She had to change her wardrobe because her clothes no longer fit, being that she had expanded. I suggested that she try intermittent fasting, but when we weren't getting the results we wanted, I then suggested that she sign up for a gym, and she agreed. The first few weeks after Anna signed up at the gym, she wanted to stop going because of how much her body hurt. She would literally skip some days, and I would persuade her to keep going. She loathed going to the gym, and it was never something she looked forward to, but down the line, I noticed she began to change, and going to the gym was something she prepared for a day before. At first, I thought it was because she successfully passed that beginner stage where working out would not have to hurt anymore, but I was wrong. Ideally, she was supposed to go to the gym 3 times a week since she spent most of her time at home doing nothing, but she changed it to 5 times a week, including weekends. This did not sit well with me, but I could not complain since it was my idea for her to sign up for the gym in the first place. Slowly, Anna began to stay longer than usual, and most times she would come home with so much excitement. As if that was not enough, Anna would pick fights over the smallest things. If I told her she looked better in a particular pair of pants, she'd get pissed. If I told her I didn't want a particular meal for breakfast, she'd make a big deal out of it. When I could not take it anymore, I told her parents about it, and when her parents called to talk to her, she got upset and left the house for about a week. At that point, I was so worried. We never had the kind of fight where she had to leave the house, and I didn't want her parents to know about it either. After repeatedly calling and begging her for the whole week, she returned, and that's when things got worse. I had to apologize for everything she did, even when it was clear that she was the one at fault. I did the cooking, laundry, and took care of the house. I did everything possible to make sure that we didn't fight again, even when she got on my nerves sometimes, because if I did, she would threaten to leave, and I didn't want that. Meanwhile, she did not miss any of her gym workout days, but our relationship was slowly falling apart. Before everything turned out the way it did, we used to get intimate at least 3 times a week, but after she changed, we could go 2 weeks before she let me touch her. One day, she returned from the gym quite late as usual, but in high spirits, and that particular day, I was having a tough time working because my service provider was giving me issues. I asked to borrow her phone so I could use her hotspot, and she just unlocked it and handed it to me. Then she went to her room to shower and change. While I was with her phone, it didn't take long before a message from a certain Andrew popped up. It said, "I know I should not be texting you now, but I want you to know that you're the sweetest and sexiest girl I know, and I love how you drive me crazy. See you soon." Then he added those heart-shaped emojis. It took me a while to wrap my head around what was going on, and when I did, without wasting time, I took screenshots of the texts and forwarded them straight to her family WhatsApp group, and then I called her mother immediately. When this happened, Anna kept trying to talk to me from the bedroom, but when I wasn't responding, she came out to meet, my eyes filled with tears. I asked her if she was seeing someone else, and she flared up and threatened to leave as usual, but this time, I helped her in packing her bags. When she realized she had been busted, she begged and begged, but I still kicked her out. Her parents called her and yelled at her to the extent she could not control her tears. She knew she had disappointed them, and she had to live with that. I could not believe I allowed her to emotionally manipulate me while she was screwing another guy from the gym behind my back. She tried to come back to me several times, but I warned her to never come close to me or my apartment. As manipulative as she was, she even tried to remind me of everything we shared and told me to not let one mistake ruin everything. I had enough, and I got her a restraining order. Later on, I found out that the time she left the house for a week, it was Andrew's house she stayed at and not one of her friends, as she claimed. Funny thing is, she did not even know Andrew was married, and his wife and son had traveled for that period. After about 3 months, she started calling my number again with a different number, begging me to take her back. She was sorry, but I blocked her again. Though it was not easy, I'm happy I got rid of that manipulative woman. OP, it's never easy, but I'm happy you did the right thing. Anna did not deserve a second chance, not after cheating on you and taking your love for granted. You wanted what was best for her, but she turned around to pay you back in the worst possible way. No one should be with a cheating and manipulative partner. She was manipulative, and she did not deserve you. It's sad you had to experience all of that, especially after you repeatedly showed her nothing but love. Sorry things had to turn out this way for you, but it's a sign that someone better is coming your way and you're going to get the love you deserve. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I wish you all the best going forward. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care, and 36 male, was working every day as a dentist. I was the father of two young children and I trusted their mother, 30 female, more than anyone. She was supposed to be my rock, my life partner. Her dream was to travel around the world. She was very smart and acted for years like a respectable woman, so I wanted to make her dream come true. Even before our wedding day, it became impossible for me to picture living my life without her. We were married for 6 years before we had our first child. For years later, we had our second. Shortly after our second-born's 5th birthday, my wife celebrated 10 years of employment with her company. Our life was better than I ever could have asked for. We celebrated by hosting a party in our home. Several of her colleagues came over, and it was only the second time I got to meet them in all those years. Everyone seemed really nice. Several people complimented me and my wife. All of them got to see or meet our kids, who got out of bed to investigate mom and dad's friends. I didn't notice anything weird about the party or the people there. My wife was a little excited and jittery, but that was how she usually got whenever she was at a social gathering. She didn't know it, but I was saving up money as fast as I could for a trip to Australia to celebrate our upcoming 20th wedding anniversary. I worked 6 days a week, so I was looking forward to this more than any old Sunday. I had the thought at least once a week that our area needed more dentists. Literally just days after the party we hosted, and days before I planned telling my wife and kids about the trip I had planned, my Emile texted me. All she said was, "She's cheating on you." I replied with lots of question marks, and when she didn't reply back, I called her. She sighed before admitting that there were lots of people who knew my wife was cheating on me. She started an affair about 2 years prior with one of her colleagues. Completely taken aback, I asked why she, nor anyone else ever told me about it. She said she didn't tell me about it because it was her daughter, and she didn't want to be the one to tell her secret. But after so long of an affair, she couldn't take it anymore and reasoned that I deserved to know so either of us had a chance at getting married again. I couldn't believe my wife was shamelessly seeing another man, and none of her coworkers felt like telling me. Then she added that my wife was looking forward to this upcoming business trip. My wife told her that work trips were the only time she could feel guilt-free with AP. Then she admitted to her mother that she might be enjoying her affair more than her marriage. I asked my Emile what I was supposed to do about custody of the children, which I immediately regretted because she started saying that my wife was still an excellent mother, so I could let her have, and that's when I hung up. Now that I knew the truth, I was going to start taking my life back. I felt like a moron as I explained the situation to my lawyer. How had I not seen any signs? My lawyer suggested I obtain evidence of some kind before confronting her about it. So before she left me with the kids to go on the business trip she was so looking forward to, I asked her where it would be held and wrote down the address. She probably assumed I just asked for safety reasons. She kissed the kids goodbye and then tried to kiss me. I pulled away, but she didn't ask me why. She just looked at me a moment before she shrugged and left. That's how I knew she didn't care about me anymore. I planned to surprise her at the address she gave me. I left her kids with my mom, who was very eager to see them. She lived independently, 45 minutes away from us, far enough that she wasn't comfortable driving, so having the kids at her house didn't happen very often. I needed her more than ever at this point. I arrived at the address of a fancy hotel. There were several luxurious rooms for social gatherings. I found the one for my wife's and started recognizing people as I walked around. I held my phone, recording as I searched for her. If she so shamelessly spent time with this man around her coworkers, I could think of no better way to get proof and confront her. People I met before stared at me, probably wondering where they knew me from. One woman gasped and didn't take her eyes off me. She knew this was it. My wife was busted. Several other people noticed me looking around and remembered who I was. By the time I made eye contact with my wife, we had an audience of about 80 people. She had another man's arm around her waist. I could tell that just a moment before she saw me, she was extremely comfortable having a marvelous time. I was shell-shocked. My wife dropped her wine glass as I felt my anger reach a point I never felt before in my life. All the years I spent with her and our children's faces flashed in my head. I thought about flipping over a table full of food, but I was recording her and AP at this moment. I was trembling as I rhetorically asked if anyone cared to tell me the truth about my wife. No one said a word. No one moved. I asked her directly why she cheated on me. Even though on the grand scale of things, it didn't matter why my wife cheated on me. I felt like I needed to know. I wanted her to explain on camera why I wasn't good enough for her in front of all the people she worked with. She looked extremely stupid when she just stammered that she didn't know why. I scoffed loudly and yelled that our kids deserved a better mother. Then I walked out. Later that night, after I was back at home with our kids, my MIL called, begging me to give my wife another chance. She said it wasn't her place to tell me what my wife was doing. I thanked her for telling me the truth because anyone deserves to know when they're being cheated on. She paused before asking me again to forgive my wife so she could come back home. She went on to explain that she didn't have room for her to move in and just flat out didn't want her to live with her. I laughed a hearty laugh and hung up. Neither her or her daughter cared about me. They were only thinking of themselves. For some reason, my MIL became annoyed by the fact that everyone knew about my wife's affair except for me, so she told me the truth because it was what she wanted to do. Now that it inconvenienced her, she wanted me to forgive her daughter. She didn't even say it was for her daughter's sake. She just wanted her house back. Wouldn't you believe that my wife called me just 2 days later asking me to forgive her because she didn't want to live with her mom? She said she was sorry, but I knew her tears were because she hated the consequences of cheating on me, not because she felt remorse for breaking apart our family. I had already uploaded the video online and attached it to an email to her company. She and AP lost their jobs already. I took this time to tell her that I saved up money for a trip to Australia, intending to celebrate our 20th anniversary, but now it was going to be a trip for me to celebrate being a father to two amazing kids. My mom would be taking her ticket. She didn't believe me at first, but then she started throwing a tantrum. This was the best and worst karma for her to experience. She was missing out on her lifelong dream that I made possible, all because she started a shameless 2-year-long affair with a colleague. I'm happy to say that the trip to Australia was absolutely incredible and it really helped me to grow as a father and heal as a man. Opie, I am so sorry your wife did this to you. You and the kids certainly deserved better than this from her, and you wanted better for her too. It's devastating that she did this to you without any concern for the family and life you had together. She behaved as though she could get away with it for as long as she wanted, and she really didn't expect anyone to rat her out. I guess it was the fine work of karma that got into your MIL's head and convinced her to rat out her own daughter. She basically said it was because she was tired of her getting away with it. There you have it. The betraying daughter is betrayed by her betraying mother. The circle continues. You did the right thing by confronting her, recording, and refusing to forgive her for this. I feel like a lot of people use the word forgive to pressure victims into being pushovers and allowing the person that hurt them to keep getting everything they want in life without any repercussions. Thank you for providing us an example of what a betrayed spouse should do. Never accept anything less than the vows your spouse made to you, and never give your spouse anything less than those vows. Whenever there's any kind of issue that puts a wedge between you and your significant other, an honest talk is the only way to try resolving the issue properly. In many cases, there isn't a specific problem with the relationship when one spouse starts a comparison game or gets a thought that festers into reasoning for them to cheat. Shut down that temptation as soon as it arises by talking to your partner honestly every day. Appreciate everything your spouse wants to share with you and work together to decide what needs to happen next. I wish you all the best. Now, let's get into our second story for today. My wife, 27 female, and I, 28 male, got married young when we were 20 and 21. I met her through friends while I was attending college, and I fell in love. Before I met her, I never thought I'd let my guard down for a woman so quickly, but I believe we were meant to become a pair. I obtained my degree the same year my wife became pregnant. Life was moving fast for us, but I never felt worried or scared. My parents were a little. Her parents were thrilled she was settling down and staying out of trouble. She never told me much about her past, but she had a lot of friends. It seemed that for much of our relationship, if not all of it, I was sharing her with her friends. After she had our son, she went back to socializing and insisted I stay home to watch him while she went out at least once a week. I easily agreed to this. I felt like we were living the perfect dream. After a while, I wanted us to go out together, but my wife didn't trust either of our parents to watch our son. I thought that was pretty frustrating because they were supposed to help us and smother their grandson with love. So things stayed the same. She went out with her friends then sometimes she watched the baby while I went out. I didn't like this separation. Before I got to talk to her about it, she started acting weirder. Each night she went out, she'd tell me which friends she was going to meet. She started to get scrambled and forgot which names she told me the next day. I pointed out her inconsistencies and how she was always vague about what they did each night. She got nervous and said she had to lie to her mom about who she hung out with because her mom hated one of the girls she spent time with, so that's why she got confused and told me the wrong story. I did not believe this at all. It was just alarming. How could she forget which truth to tell me? If her mom didn't like one of her friends, that isn't a very complex lie to keep straight, and it wouldn't mean she have to lie to me at all. I didn't want to cause an argument because I could tell my wife was in defense mode. While she was out another night, I called my MIL. I asked her who my wife said she went out with the night before. She was audibly uncomfortable and put on the spot. She cursed a little and sighed heavily. She assumed the jig was up and admitted my wife was seeing someone else because she had some growing up to do. I was shocked and hurt. My Emile justified my wife's cheating ways, blamed it on her immaturity. She assured me that my wife would learn from this if I could let it go this time. I hung up on her. I looked at my son, and I felt broken, like I would never be the same after this. When my wife returned, I told her I knew everything. She looked at our son and instantly broke down. She told me she needed me to forgive her. She said exactly what her mom said, that she was young and stupid and made a bad decision, but she didn't deserve to lose our family. It was honestly really annoying to hear her talk about what she didn't deserve. She didn't deserve me, my trust, or the nice home we had as a family. I dedicated myself to her, even though I was just a year older than her. Why should I accept this when it's the one thing I never expected her to do? It's the one thing I decided I wouldn't tolerate in my marriage. With these thoughts fueling me, I told her to go stay with her mom. She took our son with her to her mom's. Anyway, it felt like she was trying to punish me for refusing to forgive her. During the divorce, I realized I needed to obtain solid evidence of my wife's affair. I knew I wouldn't be able to get anything from her or her mom directly, so I served subpoenas on my wife's cellular company. As soon as she heard about this, she in turn requested a protective order in an attempt to squash my efforts in proving her infidelity. Thankfully, the court saw what she was trying to do and sided with me. I had the right to engage in discovery, which might lead to evidence of her adultery. To no one's surprise, blatant evidence of an affair was found. Images and texts sent between her and more than 5 other men. All the times she ever planned to go out with AP were there, along with the plans she made to hook up with 2 other men. I'm happy to say that I won primary custody and have since healed from this experience. I started dating a wonderful woman 1 year and 2 months ago today. She's a young widow with a young daughter. I can't explain it, but it feels like my story was already written. I know I was always meant to be with this woman, as much as I am meant to be a respectable father figure to her children. I feel like I've grown wiser and saw straight through my ex and her mother's manipulation tactics. Opie, you are absolutely right. You saw straight through their word flattery. They tried to make it seem like your wife's completely unacceptable betrayal was just a simple mistake because she had some growing up to do. That is no excuse, and it's no reason for you to stay with a cheater. She proved that she wasn't ready for marriage and that she didn't respect or love you. To stay with her just because she was young or immature would have been a grave mistake. She just opened the door to infidelity, comparisons, and wondering who else she could spread her legs for. You operated as an example for men put into a similar situation. Separate from the cheater, seek support and evidence, and do not accept anything less. At least you've done yourself a great favor by refusing to stay with her. I'm proud of you for how far you've come, and I wish you the best of luck in life. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. My now ex-wife, 38, and I, 38 male, were together for 20 years. The two of us got together in our first year of college and were inseparable since the moment we started dating. High school and college sweethearts don't always end up in a long-term relationship, but I was confident that if anyone could make it work, it would be the two of us. After our college graduation, I popped the question and we got married soon after. Fast forward 16 years and 3 children later, our life was something that I would say was crafted out of a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect, but no relationship was perfect. It was a little while after our 20th anniversary when I started to notice odd things happening with my then wife. She was acting as you typically expect cheaters to act. Sneaky, touchy, mean, and just uninterested in our marriage and family. We had been married for a long time, so slumps could happen. I tried to brush it off and just give it time. One time I went so far as to suggest counseling, but this was shut down as soon as I suggested it. She claimed we didn't need therapy because everything was fine. So I went online and started searching for reasons she might be like this. A lot of what I found suggested that she might be cheating. I didn't want to believe it, but it would explain all of the strange behavior. One night after we went to bed, I grabbed her phone from her nightstand and broke into it. My wife was a heavy sleeper, so she didn't even twitch. I figured out her password on the second try before heading straight to the text messages. There were numerous text messages with this guy I knew as her longtime coworker. However, as far as I knew, they had never been close. They would have no reason to have so much contact with each other. This was suspicious, so I checked out the text messages between them. It was that night I discovered the affair between my wife and her older coworker. I never thought I'd have to worry about someone nearly 2 decades older than me who was not in shape and had a receding hairline, yet here I was. I could not fathom what my wife saw in him, but there was no denying something had to be pulling her to him. Cheating was one of those deal breakers for me. As far as I was concerned, the marriage was over. That night, I slept on the couch. When my wife confronted me the next morning for sleeping downstairs, I turned around and confronted her about the affair. She turned as white as a sheet. At first, she tried denying it until I showed her the phone I had broken into. The woman had the actual audacity to be angry about me invading her privacy. I told her it was worth invading her privacy for a little peace of mind. At first, my wife did seem to want to repair the relationship, but after it became clear I was going to go forward with a divorce, she decided it wasn't worth it. About a month after I filed for divorce, she moved out and started seeing the AP she was cheating on me with. The divorce wasn't a particularly nasty one. We were able to agree on custody, who would get what, etc. I think both of us just wanted it to be over with. The reason I wanted it over is because I wanted to be free and no longer tied down to her. While my now ex wanted it done so she could ride off into the sunset with her cork turned AP, I kept myself on a need-to-know basis with my ex after that. The only time we communicated was about the divorce or our children. There were parenting apps you could use to communicate with the other parent, which kept things simple. Luckily, she didn't protest with us using that as our primary method of communicating. Our kids had a hard time with it, as any child would. I could only tell them so much about why the marriage ended and tried very much to keep it not only age-appropriate but also kid-friendly. As much as I disliked my ex, she was a good mother to our 3 children. This was probably one of her only redeeming qualities. Soon a year passed and our divorce was official. I focused on everything else in my life, my kids, job, friends, family, hobbies, etc. It did a good job of keeping me busy and not thinking about why my wife decided to blow up our marriage the way she did. The only logical explanation was that she was always a terrible person but didn't show it until then. I was honestly okay with that. My wife remained with the affair partner. It seemed to be working out until it wasn't, and when it blew up in her face, she came to me with tears in her eyes. The night it happened, she called me asking if I could have the kids again overnight even though it was her turn. I didn't mind because I love spending time with my kids and didn't have any plans either. So I said yes, but asked what was going on because I could hear that she had been crying. She told me that karma was a pain and had finally come for her. Her affair partner had cheated on her with someone who was a decade younger than my ex. This was discovered after she went through his phone while he was in the shower. I have no idea why she told me this. Maybe she thought I would feel some pity for her or in some bizarre world try to rekindle things with her again. The joke was on my ex because I had already been seeing someone for the past few months and I was crazy about them. She ended up asking for forgiveness again at the end of the conversation. I told her no, she hadn't earned that forgiveness even if she was feeling exactly what I felt when I discovered that she was cheating on me. Cue the wailing. I cut the call short, agreeing to take the kids for the weekend so she could gather herself and figure out what she wanted to do about this guy. It would be better for my kids not to be there for all that drama anyway. The most important thing was keeping them away from all of that crap to the best of my ability. It would be a lie if I didn't admit that hearing him go on and do the same thing to her only with a younger woman did make me feel a little better. I was always frustrated because my ex never seemed to understand why I was so hurt. Now she knew why, and when the shoe was on the other foot, it wasn't a very fun place to be. From what I know, the two of them are still together, but the trust is just gone. Honestly, that's the most hilarious thing I have ever heard because how could you have trust in a relationship that started as an affair? My ex got what was coming to her. I don't wish her any physical harm, of course, as she is the of my children, but some karmic retribution. I wish her all of that and more. If she ends up trying to complain to me again, I'm just going to cut her off before she has a chance to tell me anything. I don't want to know and don't care to know. The sooner my ex gets that through her head, the better off all of us will be. OP. As they say, what comes around goes around, and your ex-wife has certainly seen this come to fruition. Like some people say, she played around and found out. If she was so disillusioned in your relationship, then there were so many things she could have done. First, she could have tried to work it out, but if that wasn't possible, then ask for a divorce. I promise you, had you not decided to go through her phone that night, you wouldn't have found out about the affair either at all or for months, possibly years. She had her cake and wanted to eat it too. This is clear by how easily she gave up when you refused to budge from getting a divorce. There is no better gift for your ex than karma coming for her. It bulldozed its way into her life and kept tearing things apart until there was nothing left. Now, let's get into our second story for today. I met my wife while I was working a job in my chosen field, but it was lower paying than I would have wanted. It wasn't too shocking because I was a dejected millennial who had grown up in this economy, so I was just happy to find something that could pay me. When I was getting coffee, I bumped into her and we got to talking. I know it sounds a little corny, but the two of us did hit it off right away. After talking in line for a bit, we exchanged numbers and then went out on a date. It was one of those whirlwind romances where everything happened all at once. I think maybe the fact that it happened so fast blinded me to any red flags there could have been in the beginning. After about a year, we were getting married. I proposed out of the blue. I don't know why I rushed it. Maybe it was the honeymoon phase, but we married in a small ceremony and she moved from her apartment to my modest one-room apartment. Now, I never had a lot of money. My family was lower middle class, and so was my ex-wife's family, so it wasn't like the two of us didn't come from a similar environment. We did want to build a secure life, but if it didn't happen right away, that was fine. Things like this did take time after all. Get-rich-quick schemes were exactly that. They were schemes and didn't work. For the first year or two, things seemed good and it was like we were on the same page. Then my wife started to appear as if she were disillusioned with the life we were building. Suddenly, the apartment wasn't good enough. Nothing I did seemed to be good enough. I wasn't making the right amount of money. We couldn't do anything romantic because of the lack of income and just anything that costs money. Her biggest gripe was that I didn't earn enough money. Not her, me. She worked full-time as well, but since I was the husband, I should be the one who was providing more of the money to the relationship. It's a shame that I tried, but I was still deeply in love with this woman. I worked longer hours and put away as much money as I could. When this was happening, I was exhausted all the time. My wife would start complaining about how I never had any time with her, even though I was working overtime for her. The longer it went on, the less I wanted to do it anymore, so I realized something was going to have to change. I planned to talk with my wife and see if we could try to work things out. If I spoke with her, then certainly she would be able to see my point of view right. At least I thought this would be the case. So I decided to come home early one day to speak with her. However, when I got home and looked for my wife, I found her in our bed with some other guy. She screamed and I just turned and went into the kitchen. I heard movement from our bedroom followed by the slamming of the front door. My wife came in asking what I was doing here. My response was to ask her what she was doing with some other guy in our bed. She claimed it didn't mean anything, so I asked how long it had been going on. My wife admitted it was going on for the past 6 months, so for half a year she had been lying to me. I asked how they met, and she said they met on a social media site. Honestly, I didn't care about anything else she had to say after that. Once I knew she was cheating on me, it was like the wool had been pulled from over my eyes. I was able to see all the red flags I initially missed and knew there was only one step ahead of us we could take. It had to be a divorce. There was no other way. She changed her tune right away when it became clear I wouldn't change my mind and take her back. So, once I said it was over, she packed her things and left. From there, we went forward with the divorce. My wife wanted to make it official so she could go be with her AP. Over time, I came to find out that the AP was quite rich, and once I found that out, the pieces started to fit into place. My wife, or now ex-wife, had always wanted to live a far better life than what I was able to provide right now. It was like she wanted to get one of those get-rich-quick schemes, and if you know anything about them, you will know that they do not work no matter how much you want them to. By getting involved with a rich guy, she did accomplish her goal, so I guess there was that, but it still didn't mean it would work out. Once the divorce was final, my ex moved in with the guy and started an official relationship with him. I tried my best to push her out of my mind and focus on rebuilding my life. The first step was to stop focusing on work so much. I could still work, but also enjoy my life. By doing this, I was able to spend more attention on my hobbies and just the little things that I used to enjoy in life. A few months after the divorce, my ex-wife got into contact with me. She called me from one of her friend's phones since I blocked her main number. Once I answered, my ex started crying about how her new boyfriend had dumped her after 6 months. There went her backup plan, much to my amusement. My ex had always wanted something more in life, but she had never been willing to work hard for it. This was reality slapping her in the face, and I'm not going to lie, I was loving every moment of it. I don't care if it had been petty of me because I had worked myself like a dog to make my wife happy only to have it blow up in my face. It was clear my ex was contacting me to get some pity or something along those lines. At least it was the only thing I could think of. Whatever the reason, she was looking in the wrong place for it, and I told her as much. I do wonder if I reacted differently if she would have tried to ask if she could stay with me or give us another chance. Honestly, I had no idea, because as soon as I brushed her off, she started shouting and then hung up on me. If hanging up on me was supposed to hurt, then this was one of the best punishments I had ever received, because I didn't want to talk to her anymore anyway. Through the grapevine, I heard that my ex-wife showed up at the guy's house and tried to get him to take her back. It nearly ended up with her getting arrested in the process. My ex clearly couldn't let go of this guy because he was her one chance at getting rich quickly. Hey, if she wanted to waste time going after him, then so be it. Since I kicked her out, she was no longer my problem. Let her be her AP's problem or whatever other guy she ends up stringing along. I've moved on in my life. The future may seem a little bit uncertain, but the one thing I am sure of is that my ex is not going to be a part of it under any circumstance. I have never seen a greater example of cruel irony than this situation right here. Your ex-wife wants that typical American dream without having to even work hard for it. This is truly lovable. Why she thought she would base her future on a man she had an affair with is beyond me. It is hilarious when you think about it. You handled it beautifully. From the moment you found out, you didn't let your emotions cloud your judgment and were quick to tell your wife it was over. This is commendable. Hopefully, it will also give hope to people who find themselves in this same situation. Keep moving forward and don't ever look back. If you do look back at your relationship, just realize that you dodged the bullet when it came to your ex. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. I, 32 male, and my wife, 32 female, were huge animal lovers, and in our 8 years of being together, I thought it would keep our bond strong. In fact, this is what brought us together in the first place. I remember putting in my dating profile many moons ago about wanting to go on a date with someone who was at the park with my dog. She messaged me back and said that she wanted to do the same. Now, our relationship seemed so perfect from the start. We both got along super well, and our love for animals, especially my dog, brought us closer. She didn't have a dog herself, but instead, a cat. The cat and my dog grew to love each other when she moved in with me. I thought that she was the one and the most perfect person I could think of. I mean, come on, animal lover, and didn't want me to toss away my dog, my best friend. It seemed so right. Naturally, I popped the question quickly. I imagine we could all have the animal house we wanted, where we got along swimmingly. While hiking, I asked her at the top of the mountain one day. She said yes, and I was over the moon. We planned the wedding quickly and had a small ceremony where we and a few family members got together. My dog was the ring bearer because he mattered so much, and neither of us knew anyone with sons to take this responsibility. From the moment I said I do, I knew this life would be perfect, which is why I still don't understand why my biggest love is what caused my relationship's downfall. So here we were, happily married and with our animals 3 years into our relationship. Her cat, Spartacus, got along super well with Boney, my dog. Naturally, I figured that our family of four would be the idea, until she asked a question. This was about 5 years into our relationship. She said that we might get him a companion because Boney was getting older. I told her, nope, he doesn't need it. Boney never seemed to care about other animals. He just liked his treats and pets from me. I took him out every day to get exercise, and while Boney was still spry and happy, I could tell he was getting old. The vet warned me that his joints were beginning to wear down, and he might not be the energetic dog I've had for over 10 years. She started to ask again. I kept telling her no, that this is a huge responsibility. She worked as a graphic designer, sometimes working long hours, and she didn't have the time for a dog. We had many arguments about it until one day, and she showed me a freaking PowerPoint on why she should get a dog. Convinced, I finally gave in. However, when we went to the shelter, none of the dogs seemed to fit. They were friendly, sure, but she didn't see one that fit her. She told me that she wanted a golden double. Naturally, these dogs are laid back, and their temperaments are great. It's perfect for old Boney because he's not as active as he used to be, and if the dog wanted to wrestle and roughhouse, Spartacus still acted like a kitten despite being 8. She told me that there were reputable golden double breeders. I gave in, told her sure, and she did her research. She brought up this breeder, which was really close to our place, so I agreed. Why not? We could get the dog and then head back by the end of the day. At least she wasn't trekking me halfway across the country for a dog. We drove over there, and then we met the breeder. His name was Alex. Now my wife is engaged in conversation. This was just the initial introduction stage. It bothered me, but I figured maybe I was overreacting. We agreed to return in about a month once the puppies were weaned from their mother. In that month, I saw a change in my wife. She grew distant, and when Boney and I went out to the park, she would stay behind. She told me it was work, but I have seen no major financial changes since then. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't put my finger on it. Naturally, I didn't want to cause trouble, so I kept mum. A month passed, and we went over there again. Now these two were incredibly friendly towards each other, to the point where I was being pushed out. This started to get me angry. I asked her if something was going on between Alex and her. They were close enough to each other, so naturally it could be possible. But nope, nothing. She told me he was just a nice guy helping her get her dog ready. We argued about it, and she told me I was being paranoid. I told her I didn't appreciate being left out of the decisions. We both needed space. Then it came time to adopt the little golden doodle. We paid the breeder fee, which is insane. I don't know why I thought spending over $1,000 on a dog was a good idea, and we took our tiny boy Moose home. Moose and Boney did well together, but I noticed she was not spending much time with the dog. I told her he needed some attention, and she brushed me off. Sometimes we got into fights over this. She would say to me she was going somewhere and leave me with the dogs. This was her responsibility. So naturally, I'm getting a little bit pissed at this point. One day after she left, I realized she didn't take her phone. Curiosity got the better of me, and like a bloodhound, I looked through it. There were texts between her and Alex, some of them flirty. He had a different name on her phone, and the spicy messages were hidden. The longer I read them, the angrier I got. So naturally, I had to do something about this. I wasn't going to let this bitch who conned me into buying a dog that was over $1,000 get away with this. She told Alex she wanted me to get the dog to help him so they could look together. I got in the car, and I had Boney with me. We drove over to the ranch house where Alex was. The gate was open, and I saw it light on. I went through the back, and that's when I got an idea. I let Boney in first. They had the door open to the bedroom. There weren't any animals inside, so they didn't have to worry. Boney jumped on the bed and licked her face. I stepped inside, catching them in the act. My wife pulled away, and she accused me of being the bad guy stalking and spying. I confronted her about the cheating. The tears fell, crocodile tears, in my opinion. She asked if she could forgive me. She said that Alex and she hit it off well, and she didn't mean to hurt me. But of course, the damage was done. I told her not to come home. I changed the locks and called my lawyer shortly after that for the divorce proceedings. I told her that if she loved Alex so much, she should live with him. The proceedings went through quickly, and I got the house, the cars, and the golden double. While he was a handful, he became Boney's companion. It's a blessing in this otherwise messed up story. I blasted Alex's breeder business all over social media, posting that he's a cheater, a liar, and will steal wives. Naturally, the public stopped going to his place, and from what I saw, it closed. Good riddance. The dogs, Spartacus, and I are still in that house. She hasn't tried to contact me, and I think she either ran off with Alex or is alone. Neither of them is in my life anymore, and I do not want to find out. Opie, what happened to you is terrible. To think that she acted like your perfect partner, and then leaves the second someone better comes along is sick. As for the dogs, she got one to help Alex so she could run away with them, which is very selfish on her part. Anyways, I wish you all the best and hope you are able to recover from this. Now, let's get into our second story for today. I, 30 male, and my wife, 31 female, have been together for over 12 years. We met when we were young and hit it off almost immediately. We were at a Halloween party, dressed in matching costumes without even planning it. I courted her, and within those 6 months, we started dating, went steady, and then 2 years later, I asked her to marry me. I was 20, and she was 21. We got married 5 years later. Yes, it took a while, but between her getting pregnant and me trying to get my degree, things got crazy. School ate up so much of my time. She also went to hairdressing school and worked on the side as a beautician while raising our son. Time passed, and when it was time, we had a wedding. It was perfect. Flowers, extravagance, you name it, we had it. It was the best day of my life. When I think about her eyes, as she said I do, it brings joy to me. Now though, it brings only heartache of what's been lost. After we got married, we moved into a nicer house. Work was tedious, and for both of us, it was hard to get time for each other. Tommy, my son, grew up, and soon he needed us less. My wife and I started to have more free time. We took advantage of that and encouraged intimacy. However, something seemed wrong. I couldn't shake it, but I had a bad feeling about it. She accused me of paranoia plenty of times, but this time, it felt like there was an exterior force working, driving me crazy. It was a month from our 5-year anniversary. I wanted to do something special. I asked her where she wanted to go. She told me a cabin in the woods would be good. It sounded perfect, a chance for us to have some alone time and rekindle our relationship. At least, that's what I told myself. I thought it was just a lull in our relationship, but it became something more. We packed our stuff, and Tommy got pizza money. He was 9, and I had a family member check on him, but he's the type of kid that's good with Fortnite and TikTok in front of him, even though I limit that when I'm at home. We drove out to the Smokies and over to our cabin. When we arrived, a man with large muscles and a trimmed beard greeted us. He's the owner of these cabins. When we got in there, I looked over at my wife. She did a full 180 from the woman I'd been with for the last decade. She was smiling, a little flirty, and kept asking for the guy's name. He just said it was Joe and nothing more. After we checked in, I asked her what that was about. She just said he was a nice guy. However, I didn't buy it. We had the entire weekend together. I thought maybe she would get out of it. Before we got to the car, she told me she left something inside. I signed and told her to go get it. She took a little longer than I expected, but I thought maybe she dropped it. When we got to the cabin, we unpacked. My wife seemed strained. I asked her if there was anything wrong. She said no, but she was feeling a bit sick. I told her going on a hike might help, but she said she wasn't feeling super great. Naturally, I wanted to stay behind. She told me I didn't have to, that she would be fine, and that she didn't want me to miss the sunset. I said fine, and I went up alone. I saw the sunset, but I missed my wife. When I got back, I saw a light turn off in one of the back rooms. It was strange, but I dismissed it. I came in, and my wife seemed happier. We cuddled around the fire and told stories. I thought things were great. The next day, we went hiking and saw more views, but my wife seemed a little distant. She kept checking her phone, even though we weren't in an area with service. I asked her what the problem was. She told me she was worried about Tommy. Yeah, she was worried about something, all right, just not him. That evening, my wife said she wanted to go out to the thermal baths they had. I offered to join her, but she said it was fine. We got into an argument, and finally, I asked her what was going on. She insisted nothing was, and that she just wanted to soak her aching muscles. She did have some physical problems, but I didn't think that she would soak for well over an hour. When she came back, I tried to have sex with her, but she was acting weird. Sure, it was all right, but she wasn't into it, Peresi. Now, she always seemed to enjoy it until, of course, tonight. Okay, something was very wrong. I tried to ask her again, but she shut me out. The next day, she was sick. I wasn't in the mood to argue, but I wanted to hike. She told me to take pictures and see it without me. I told her that I wanted to go with her. We got into a heated argument, to the point that I needed some space. I left the cabin. That was where I made my first mistake. I spent the rest of the day outside, but when I tried talking to my wife, telling her that I was sorry, I couldn't get a hold of her. This bothered me. Even when we had our worst arguments, she would always come back to me. I had a bad feeling in the pit of my gut about this. I got back early, not even bothering to let her know that I was coming back. When I got closer, I noticed the backlight was dimmed and there were sounds. At first, I assumed it was a wild animal, but it wasn't. I opened the door very quietly and peered inside. What I saw was like a gut punch to the heart. There was my wife, riding Joe. She looked happy, more than she ever did with me. I dropped my backpack and stared in shock. When she finally realized I was there, she crawled off him. She told me that she was sorry and she couldn't get enough of him. She told him that he seduced her. I looked at Joe, asking him if it was true. Joe said no, that she was the one who made all the advances, and he even said that he didn't want to do this, but she forced herself on him. I was crushed. My wife, my love for over a decade, pushed me away for a random stranger. She begged me to take her back, but I told her no. She did this on our anniversary. What was she thinking, doing this sort of thing? I told her that we were over, took off the ring, and said that if she wanted out, she should have said something. That's when she spilled that everything in the relationship was my fault, gaslighting me into making it seem I was to blame for everything. Sure enough, most of the problems were caused by her. In a fury, I drove back, leaving her stranded with Joe at the cabin. If she wanted him so badly, then she could have him. Tommy was a little annoyed that I got back early since he couldn't play Fortnite all the time. In anger, I told him that mom and dad weren't together anymore. He asked what happened, and I told him he'd know when he was older. My lawyer helped, and I got the house, the cars, everything. Me and my wife share custody with our son. I don't know if Joe ended up marrying my wife, or if he was but another flame. I didn't care. Since then, I've been focusing on my job, raising Tommy, and preventing those same mistakes. I thought I married my one true love, but it turns out she was a monster in disguise. Opie, this is quite devastating. Anniversaries are supposed to be special. I know you've spent all that time trying to fix things but weren't able to. Her cheating on you is terrible on so many levels, especially on a weekend for you two to reconnect. I hope you're able to find love, and that things get better for you and Tommy. I hope the right one will come along and will communicate her issues instead of cheating on you. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me.